What happened after was out of my control. I kept asking myself, how far should I take this? I know him as well as anyone can. But then again, how well do you really know someone, even when they're standing right in front of you? Jim Carrey has finally come out and said it plainly: Hollywood is not what it looks like from the outside. And for many people, that admission only added fuel to a theory that has circulated for years, that some of Hollywood's biggest names have been cloned and quietly replaced. Jim himself once admitted that the character he built wasn't entirely intentional. He was just creating something people would connect with. Something that, in his own words, didn't fully exist. For a lot of people, that statement immediately brought to mind one name: Michael Jackson. Michael's story has inspired more rumors than almost any other figure in entertainment history. But few have been as controversial as the claim that the king of pop was secretly replaced by a clone or a lookalike at some point during his career. Supporters of this theory trace it back to a specific moment in the 1980s, one that was very publicly documented, but, they argue, was never fully explained. It starts with the Pepsi commercial accident in 1984. During filming, pyrotechnics accidentally ignited Michael's hair, leaving him with burns that required medical treatment. The incident was widely reported at the time, but certain conspiracy theorists have long argued that the injuries were far worse than the public was ever told, so severe, they claim, that Michael could no longer continue his career the way it had been going. According to this version of events, he disappeared from public view for a period after the accident, and fans began asking questions about where he had gone. Around the same time, television programs started featuring Michael Jackson lookalike contests. On the surface, these were just entertainment. But believers in the theory suggested they may have served a different purpose entirely, identifying someone who could convincingly pass as the superstar. The reasoning behind this, according to supporters of the theory, comes down to money. Michael Jackson was not just a performer. He was a financial institution. Record-breaking album sales, massive endorsement deals, and enormous investments were all tied to his name and his image. The argument goes that the industry had far too much at stake to simply let it all disappear because of an accident. Powerful people, the theory claims, would not have allowed that to happen. When Michael eventually returned to the spotlight, those same supporters pointed to something they found difficult to ignore. He seemed different. His appearance had changed. His voice, his facial features, even his skin tone. To conspiracy believers, these were not signs of a medical condition or the passage of time. They were evidence of a replacement. And many also believe the real motivation behind any potential replacement was not just physical, it was political. Michael Jackson had begun fighting back against the very system that had made him rich. His battle with Sony became one of the most widely discussed feuds in music history. In the early 2000s, Michael publicly accused the company of trying to destroy his career, and he was direct and unambiguous about it. Speaking to a crowd of supporters, Michael laid out what he saw as a pattern, one that had defined the lives of great performers for generations. From Sammy Davis Jr. to James Brown, Jackie Wilson to Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, he argued the story almost always ended the same way. These were people who worked relentlessly at their craft, only to be broken down and left with nothing. The companies took advantage of them, he said. They always did. He made clear that he believed the same thing was happening to him. Michael said he had generated billions of dollars for Sony throughout his career. He claimed the company's executives had always assumed that his mind was only on music and dancing, that he didn't understand the business side of things. That assumption, he said, turned out to be a serious miscalculation. He had outthought them. And now, with just one album left on his contract, essentially a box set with 2 previously written songs, he was walking away as a free agent. Not only that, but he reminded the crowd that he owned half of Sony's publishing catalog. Sony, he said, was furious. But in his view, he had simply done good business. He also spoke directly about how the company was getting its revenge by attempting to sabotage the promotion of his album Invincible. And he didn't stop there. Michael turned his attention to Tommy Mottola, one of the most powerful executives in the music industry at the time, calling him a devil in front of a cheering audience. The remark immediately drew media attention around the world. He then revealed, in a moment he half-jokingly asked not to be filmed, that Mariah Carey had come to him in tears after divorcing Mottola. According to Michael, she told him the man followed her, tapped her phones, and was deeply manipulative. Michael used it as further evidence of a pattern of control that extended far beyond his own situation. Throughout the speech, he kept returning to the same theme. This was bigger than one artist or one feud. Powerful companies were exploiting talented people, profiting from their work while stripping away their creative freedom and their financial futures. When it comes to the physical changes in Michael's appearance over the years, conspiracy theorists have always pushed back against the medical explanation. Michael himself publicly discussed vitiligo, the skin condition that causes loss of pigmentation. But believers in the replacement theory have consistently rejected this, pointing instead to the dramatic nature of the changes as evidence that something else entirely was going on. These theories also draw comparisons to similar rumors surrounding other major cultural figures, most notably, the long-running claim about Paul McCartney. The theory goes that Paul McCartney died in a car accident in 1966 and was replaced by a lookalike, and that it has been that lookalike ever since. According to the story, British authorities feared the public fallout from news of his death would be too severe. But the Beatles, allegedly consumed by guilt, began hiding clues about what had really happened inside their music and album artwork. The supposed evidence starts with the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album from 1967, the year after Paul allegedly died. On the back cover, all four members face forward except Paul. On the front, flowers appear to form the shape of a letter P, like a grave marker. And several songs on the album, some argue, seem to narrate the circumstances of a fatal accident, a distraction, a missed traffic light, a collision. The song Lovely Rita is cited as the trigger, with Paul supposedly distracted by a meter maid before losing control of his vehicle. In the same year, the Magical Mystery tour release included Strawberry Fields Forever. At the end of the track, a voice appears to say the words, "I buried Paul." Then in 1968, the White Album arrived. Playing Revolution 9 in reverse reportedly produces the phrase, "Turn me on, dead man." The song I'm So Tired, played backwards, allegedly says, "Paul is dead, man. Miss him, miss him, miss him." And then there is the Abbey Road cover, perhaps the most analyzed piece of album artwork in history. The four members walk across a zebra crossing in a formation that, according to theorists, represents a funeral procession. John Lennon, dressed in white, is the heavenly figure leading the way. Ringo Starr in black is the undertaker. George Harrison in denim is the gravedigger. And Paul, barefoot and slightly out of step with the others, is the corpse. Taken individually, each piece of supposed evidence might be easy to dismiss. But taken together, they form something that is at the very least difficult to wave away entirely. Michael Jackson, though, was far from the only contemporary musical figure to face these kinds of theories. The same claims eventually attached themselves to Kanye West. The idea that Kanye had been cloned became one of the strangest conspiracy theories to gain traction online, and supporters traced the origin of the story to a specific sequence of events in late 2022. It began on October 3rd of that year, when Kanye, who had legally changed his name to Ye, sparked a significant controversy by wearing a White Lives Matter shirt at a public event in Paris. He was joined by commentator Candace Owens, and the moment immediately ignited a firestorm of debate. Around the same time, Ye made public statements suggesting that the Black Lives Matter movement had been exposed as a fraud, and he reignited old controversy by resurfacing his earlier claim that slavery had, in some sense, been a choice. The White Lives Matter slogan had previously been designated a white supremacist phrase by the Anti-Defamation League, which only intensified the backlash. For Ye, though, the shirt appeared to be a deliberate provocation, one he defended publicly with characteristic bluntness. Just days after the Paris event, Ye posted a message on social media claiming he was preparing to go, in his words, DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. He accused certain figures in the entertainment industry of attempting to silence and blacklist him. The post drew immediate and widespread condemnation from public figures and organizations across the world. The consequences followed quickly. His accounts were restricted on major platforms. Reports emerged that his relationships with financial institutions were being affected. In interviews, he continued to defend himself, arguing that raising concerns about business practices in the industry should not be treated as a form of prejudice. He pointed to the same patterns that Michael Jackson had described years earlier, a media apparatus he felt was designed to diminish him, reduce him to a label, and deny him the recognition he had earned across fashion, music, and business. One of the most significant blows came when Adidas officially ended its partnership with him, cutting ties with the Yeezy brand and halting production immediately. The company stated that his comments and actions had been unacceptable, hateful, and dangerous. Balenciaga and the talent agency CAA had already severed their relationships with him in the days prior. Then, on October 21st, an old clip resurfaced featuring former child actor Orlando Brown. In the video, Brown made the strange claim that there were actually two versions of Kanye, a taller one and a shorter one, and that they were somehow competing to be recognized as the real person. Most observers dismissed the clip outright, but conspiracy theorists would later revisit it as a foundational piece of their argument. Days later, the social media landscape shifted in a way that added another layer to the story. On October 27th, Elon Musk completed his acquisition of Twitter, and Ye's account was restored almost immediately. But the situation grew more alarming on November 4th, when Ye shared screenshots of messages he claimed had come from his former personal trainer, Harley Pasternak. The messages were striking in tone. According to the screenshots, Pasternak offered Ye two options: either sit down for a conversation and comply, or be institutionalized again and medicated indefinitely. The message explicitly referenced his children, suggesting that playdates would not be the same if he chose the second path. The screenshots spread rapidly. Many people were disturbed by the tone of the exchange. Ye framed Pasternak not merely as a trainer, but as someone with connections to intelligence services, a handler, he claimed, of the type that surrounds major celebrities in Hollywood. He extended the concern to his children's school environment, describing what he saw as a system of indoctrination and control that reached into every corner of his life. In his telling, the pressure to apologize, to comply, to stay within certain boundaries was not coming from the public. It was coming from specific, powerful individuals who had a financial and strategic interest in keeping him quiet. And his refusal to go along with it, he argued, had made him a target. So the question being asked by those who follow these theories is not a small one. Were these artists, Michael Jackson, Kanye West, Paul McCartney, all telling us something about an industry that operates very differently from what the public sees? And what does it mean when some of the most successful and visible people in the world say, openly, that something is being done to them that no one is willing to talk about? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if this is the kind of story that makes you think, make sure you subscribe. There is a lot more where this came from. But Michael wasn't the only music superstar surrounded by allegations of cloning and conflict with powerful figures in the industry. According to some conspiracy theorists, Kanye West experienced something similar. The idea that Kanye was cloned became one of the internet's strangest theories, and supporters often point to a series of dramatic events that unfolded in late 2022. The story begins on October 3, 2022, when Kanye, who had legally changed his name to Ye, sparked major controversy after wearing a White Lives Matter shirt at a public event. The move immediately triggered backlash online and once again placed him at the center of a media firestorm. Critics condemned the shirt, while supporters argued it was intended to provoke discussion. The controversy quickly dominated headlines, with commentators and public figures debating his motives and the meaning behind the message. Ye later explained that he believed the shirt was humorous because, in his view, it was simply stating something obvious. He even recalled a conversation with his father, who reportedly laughed at the phrase and described it as a black man stating the obvious. But the backlash didn't stop there. Just days later, Ye posted a tweet that generated even more outrage. In the message, he claimed he was preparing to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people and accused certain individuals within the entertainment industry of trying to silence and blacklist him. The reaction was immediate. The post was condemned across social media, major news outlets covered the controversy extensively, and many public figures criticized his remarks. Before long, restrictions were placed on some of his social media accounts, and reports began emerging that his relationships with major corporations and financial institutions were being affected. As criticism continued to mount, Ye defended himself in multiple interviews. He argued that people were focusing entirely on his statements while ignoring the concerns he was trying to raise. According to him, powerful interests within media and entertainment were working to suppress dissenting voices and control public narratives. Over the following weeks, the consequences became increasingly severe. Companies that had previously worked with Ye began distancing themselves from him. Partnerships that had taken years to build started unraveling one after another. One of the most significant developments came when Adidas announced it was ending its relationship with Ye and discontinuing production of Yeezy-branded products. The decision marked the end of a partnership that had helped transform Yeezy into one of the most successful fashion brands in the world. Other organizations followed suit. Agencies, brands, and business partners publicly cut ties with him, creating the impression that much of the corporate world was moving away from the rapper almost simultaneously. Then, on October 21, 2022, an unusual video featuring former child actor Orlando Brown began circulating online. In the clip, Brown made a bizarre claim. According to him, there were actually two different versions of Kanye, a taller Kanye and a shorter Kanye, and the two were somehow competing to be the real Ye. Most viewers dismissed the comments as nonsense. However, conspiracy theorists later pointed back to the video as one of the earliest public statements supporting their theory. What many people initially laughed off would later be cited repeatedly across online forums and social media discussions. A few days later, another major event changed the social media landscape entirely. On October 27, 2022, Elon Musk officially completed his acquisition of Twitter. Soon afterward, Ye's account was restored, allowing him to return to the platform and communicate directly with his followers once again. But the situation would take another unexpected turn.